Hello there. The Prime Minister must dismiss all calls to extend the Brexit talks beyond the end of the year, or risk dragging the UK into a costly eurozone bailout. Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the rear by giving this video a big fat like. And I'm always uploading new content, so please do check my YouTube channel daily. And if you want to hear a bit of irrelevant news, Sir Keir Starmer is now the leader of the Labour Party after winning more than 50% of the vote in the first round of vote counting. Now, he may have won the votes, but he failed on the three main lefty criteria, didn't he? Those of gender, ethnicity and age. Oops. Wonder when his first call for a second referendum will come. So that means that's lots of internal party bloodletting and lots of talk about Labour splitting in two over the coming weeks and months, I suppose. Now, Starmer's predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn, recently warned whoever the winner would be to resist the temptation of climbing into bed with the Tories in a government of national unity, possibly to ensure Labour remained as untainted as possible by any government failure in addressing this crisis. But Boris did, this morning, write to all opposition party leaders saying, "As party leaders, we have a duty to work together at this time of national emergency. Therefore, I would like to invite all opposition leaders to a briefing with myself, the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Advisor next week." And I bet they all trot along to try and look important and involved, and to try and dig any dirt they can too. 'Twill be interesting. Moving on. As expected, more calls are being made by business for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson to extend the Brexit Implementation Period beyond the 31st of December this year. "Nothing else can be done," they wail, "while this global health crisis continues. Government is gummed up, so has no bandwidth or energy to deal with Brexit," they all claim. While overlooking the fact that the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has just issued a hefty tome called Decarbonising Transport, Setting the Challenge, about pressing forward with plans to strip us all of fossil fuels and cars and get us onto public transport and our active transport bicycles in the nation's quest for the zero carbon by 2050 or earlier. We seem to have enough bandwidth and energy for that, don't we? And I haven't heard the usual suspects call for that to be put firmly on the back burner while we deal with this current immediate crisis. Have you? Especially as the COP26 climate change conference, due to take place in Glasgow later this year, has now been understandably cancelled. Well, postponed for a year. And considering that we have until 2050 for zero carbon, why not put it all on hold and deal with the health crisis and Brexit fully right now instead? Now that would have the Green lobby foaming at the gills, as they believe we should all be wearing clogs and riding wooden bicycles to our place of work at the local allotments right now. But they would still probably rather like the benefits of things like nuclear medicine when required, but without the tiresome need for nuclear reaction to take place in the UK to produce it. I digress. Now, according to the Express, business leaders are claiming that Boris is quietly bowing to pressure and is lining up to agree a late Brexit Implementation Period extension with the EU as the deadline looms on June the 30th. It reports that publicly the Prime Minister has said he won't delay Britain's departure from the bloc single market and customs union beyond the end of the year. But business lobbyists who hold regular meetings with government officials believe Mr Johnson could be about to accept the need for a one-off extension to the transition period. And they say that the Prime Minister is just readying some sort of strategy to sell it to the Brexiteer public. But Brexit is more than just business. It also covers our sovereignty and our independence. And were we to extend, it would mean more money being sent to Brussels, more time under ECJ jurisdiction, and probably crucial at this time, more exposure to the risk of being dragged into a eurozone bailout. On this, a new group set up by former Brexit Party MEPs Ben Habib and Brian Monteith, called Brexit Watch, warned that the eurozone was building up mountains of toxic debt to which the UK could be exposed if it all went wrong. In exactly the same way that former Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer Alistair Darling was forced to agree to in 2010, when EU law required him, despite his claims of his angry opposition, to participate in a £95 billion stabilisation mechanism to save the euro in the aftermath of the 2008 credit crunch. And that put the UK on the hook for 13-odd billion quid. So when looking at the scale of this economic downturn, you can see that all the indicators have turned south far more quickly and far more steeply than they ever did as a result of the credit crunch in 2008, something I talked about in a video yesterday. The Eurozone budget was shredded enough by Brexit well before this health storm hit the world, and now it faces the prospect of huge unavailability of funds as EU 27 member states' GDPs go into freefall. This is already placing huge stresses on EU cohesiveness, to the point it could shatter both the Eurozone and the EU itself. EU 27 member states are going hammer and tongs at each other over which of them are going to pick up the Brexit tab, the use of euro bonds or not to deal with the current crisis, and the hoarding of medical equipment and shutting down internal EU borders. Anyone who thinks this is a nice little friendly trading bloc must be asleep. This is not the time to be looking to extend the period during which we are locked onto that about to be heaved over the side anchor, the results of which could be catastrophic for us. And the former Governor of the Bank of England, Lord Mervyn King, said that we should think ourselves lucky not to be part of the Eurozone right now. We should be really grateful that we are not in the euro area and that we can coordinate our responses directly between the central bank and government here in Britain, he said. Because the EU would like nothing better than to have a nice, ripe, low-hanging UK plum on their bailout tree ready for the picking. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep their grubby mitts off of our nice, juicy and ripe low-hanging UK plums. What do you think? Actually, what we in the UK really do need is a legal Houdini to get us out today. So it's comforting that Boris keeps on saying that the Brexit talks will not be extended. But some have talked of the EU and Boris agreeing an extension secretly behind closed doors, then just announcing it purely as a joint agreement, with no blame for being the one who asked being attached to either side. But each could hint that the other side cracked for internal political consumption. But before that could legally happen, Boris would have to get an Act of Parliament through the system before the 30th of June. Now that would normally not be hard with the majority he's got, although many on his own benches might get a bit rebellious. But the opposition MPs would be cock-a-hoop to support a major government U-turn and watch the Brexiteers roast Boris. A very public humiliation, I would say, and something he should avoid by just sticking to the previously decided Brexit script. Otherwise, he could find his recent popularity severely dented. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So what do you think about extending the Brexit talks? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.